My friends, Victoria 3 might just be the most beautiful map game to ever be released. Take a look at the East Coast right here and tell me that this doesn't look inspiring, that you can't tell that many million pops have migrated into the United States of America here, indeed working hard, or should I say, hardly working. Folks, this right here isn't exactly a disaster save, but I still want to frame it as such because we're going to talk about understanding some basic concepts about Victoria 3. What we have right here is a United States of America gameplay where essentially, honestly, the player is doing well, they're doing completely fine, everything is okay. However, they are going for the strong market objective here, so this is one of the guidance objectives that Victoria 3 offers, and you can see that they are far away. The game doesn't tell you this, but what you need is actually to be 25% of the global GDP, which means the more you grow, the more will this number also rise. You ultimately have to kind of be incredibly fast, much faster than all the other people in the world around you to get this goal done. It's always fascinating, right? That like these kind of tutorial objectives that they offer you here, that they never actually say what exactly this is. Maybe they want to rework the localization there. But anyway, as Paris is of course besieged right here by the Germans, we are going to go ahead and fix this problem. We will be mostly talking about GDP, investment ownership, and everything that comes there with it. This is a save that is going well, but as you're going to see, it could be going so much better. Let me actually change to the good theme right here. There you go. Oh, this beautiful map. I love it so much. I cannot play with vanilla maps. It's actually crazy how much better this looks. Alright, but back on track. I do want to say one thing before we start analyzing this situation, and that is that the common tip for playthroughs like this one is, hey, just conquer everything. Because the more you own of the world, the less, of course, will that rest of the world have a GDP. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think we can do completely without. I don't think this matters too much. All we really need to do is build ourselves up and have ourselves built up as much as possible. Now, for starters, let's take a look at what is going on right here. We have a good chunk of bureaucracy, we have authority left over, influence of course quite a lot as well. Convoys, maybe far too many if you ask me right now. Convoys don't matter that much anymore for trade, and they still do, but most importantly now of course function when you are invading other countries and we're not going to be doing a lot of actual warfare. To explain this maybe a little bit, in the past these convoys would directly limit what your trade routes could do. This is no longer the case. Trade centers now consume something called the merchant marine, which is at this point a side product of a port. So you can see right here, convoys are produced and then the merchant marine is also a good that comes out of this. Which ultimately means, yes, we do want to have more ports for the merchant marine, but by and large, I mean, yeah, we are seemingly completely overscaling. Not a big deal though, let's not get hung up on it. GDP wise, we are doing okay. I say okay because it is 1908, you could be doing so much better, and you're going to see this in just a bit as well, that this is definitely possible. We're doing great on literacy, of course, standard of living is okay as well. It mostly is of course brought down by the fact that we have, as the USA in this patch, a massive pop growth rate for the largest part of the game, as well as migration, meaning that, well, these peasants are just peasants, they're not exactly going to bring up their standard of living, no matter how much industry we have. We do also have a decent chunk of radicals and a decent chunk of loyalists, which only matters insofar, I don't think that we need to fear any rebellions here, insofar as these folks of course do change the approval of the interest groups. At this point in the game, we would love to have as many loyalists as possible, because, well, ultimately that just means that even if I don't have a trade union policy, the trade unions will be liking me. Now let's take a quick gander at politics right here. You can see that we have a massive rural folk party, which comes from the fact that we have so many peasants and all of them can read. It is an art situation, but nothing really that is awful. This will change, of course, over time. Quite frankly, the yeoman farmers are not that great of a policy group. Yes, they do support, you know, stuff like universal suffrage and, of course, homesteading as well, but neither of those are actually that amazing. The drawback here, of course, being that you're stuck. They will never like multiculturalism unless they roll a very lucky leader, and most importantly, I mean, come on, what is this nonsense? Free trade, of course, is an amazing policy for a country as big and resource-rich as the USA. Now, it is important to note that we basically don't have armed forces. The reason here, I think, is very obvious. We are, of course, not really employing a big army. Not too surprising to see it this way. None of these factions right here, frankly, are something that I am interested in. Maybe work ethic, Catholic, but we would have to drive up the evangelicals, and that is probably not going to happen. Industrialists liking us is very important. Intelligentsia is very important early on into the game with the migration attraction, not so much right now. And then the trade unions actually disliking us is hugely negative. This makes it so that we have worse state construction, and we are also missing out on the manufacturing industry's throughput. For the time being, the solidarity one doesn't really matter that much, but ultimately once we start overbuilding, well, we would definitely like to have this one as well. If we could, ideally, make the trade unions and the industrialists happy, and maybe also, at least, to honest work right here, the yeoman farmers, then we would be in the perfect position. Taking a look at our laws, it is very easy to see we are a pretty standard United States of America, nothing surprising on this side. We're currently passing laissez-faire, which isn't a terrible choice, but I think not the choice that we want to be making right here. Nonetheless, again, it's not truly awful. All of these laws are quite good. Nothing here where I would say, hey, you really missed the boat, something happened that shouldn't have happened, none of that stuff. These are modern, very standard United States of America for this part of the playthrough. Now, institution-wise, we are also doing completely okay. You see that all of this, the important stuff, has been upgraded, and this is, of course, massive. I always say a dedicated police force is a huge jump, and, well, I could have guessed that the school institution was this high just based on the literacy, of course. Policy-wise, everything is perfect, so, well, then what is the issue? Because as things are, we are never going to catch up with this right here. We need 721 million in GDP, and do remember, when we grow the share of the global GDP by growing our GDP, simultaneously, this number will also be going up. Again, this journal entry doesn't tell you this, but it's a fact. Alright, so there are no glaring issues, at least nothing that, is truly detrimental and terrible in your laws. There's nothing really in your budget where I would go, hey, never do this. Again, optimization, of course, is basically us conquering the world to maximize the total land mass we own, and with that, of course, minimize the outside GDP outside of directly our location. I do feel even as though this should be updated to actually include our power block rather than just our own country's GDP, but be that as it may, it doesn't really matter. There were issues and there are mistakes that have been committed in other areas of the game. They are very easy to explain and very easy to understand once you know where to look and what to consider. Now, the first error that we want to consider here when it comes to maximizing our GDP is actually what GDP even is in the first place. Let's take a quick look at this right here. Each unit of goods produced in your country contributes to your gross domestic product. The market price value of your national production is reduced by the value of goods used as inputs into the process. GDP affects prestige and minting. So GDP, just to finish that last sentence right there, of course gives us prestige. You can see it right here, right? 858 from GDP and then 211 from GDP of subjects. The short explanation of this GDP snippet right here, which is very important to understand if you are looking to maximize your GDP, is that you are looking at your national production of goods that are not being used as input in the process. What does that mean? That means mentally you should probably distinguish between an end product that then doesn't go into another building to, be utilized right there. Let's take a look at, for example, a good example is this right here, these textile mills, right? They are produced and then immediately consumed by pops. This is the actual good that determines the GDP. Whereas these goods, since they are produced and then reused, well, yeah, they are intermediate goods. And these intermediate goods in the GDP calculation of Victoria 3, and by the way, this graphic is unhinged, but okay, these intermediate goods are not directly considered, or rather they are considered and then largely taken away yet again from their GDP calculation because they are inputs in the process. And there is the very first issue that this player has created, a mistake that I understand and that we should also look at from a different angle. I am, of course, talking about the question of this right here. I am talking about any production method that doesn't produce more goods, but rather just makes it so that indeed we are saving workforce. Take a look at it from this angle right here. This wheat farm right now is using, of course, this fertilizer to produce more grain, which means on average it actually produces more goods than it consumes and that it would produce if it didn't consume any goods. Technically, we could go down here, which means that any fertilizer we produce that isn't bought domestically, it could be bought, for example, by people importing it into their economy. They could both now count for our GDP because they are both of finished goods rather than intermediate goods, but we're producing so much more of this finished good right here that we would much rather use the fertilizer for this. Using advanced production methods, if they give you more output, makes perfect sense and will get your GDP to grow. The same can be said for something like this. No gods are used. Of course, we exchange it right here. You see 10 grain go away, then 5 and 5 of these come out. This can grow. It can shrink your GDP depending on whether the market price of these goods right here is higher than grain. But that is neither here nor there. You want to produce all goods anyway. Where it gets critical is this right here. There are two good reasons why we don't want to be using this production method right here. The first reason is, of course, that this in turn means that these engines and this coal right here is being used in our process. They are viewed by the game and by the GDP calculation as an intermediate good, as their value is used as inputs into the process and because of this reduced. So that means your GDP shrinks when you use stuff. Alternatively, we could be shipping this stuff, for example, outside of the country. We could be sending it into other markets. Then it still counts for us. Right now, this actively brings down our GDP because we are producing these goods, but we're also using them, which means effectively you can view them as intermediate goods. That sounds the same as what we're doing with the fertilizer, but the fertilizer gives us more output. This doesn't give us more output. This just reduces how many people work in this building. Now, this might make you say, wait a minute, so I never want to use these production methods? And the answer to that is no, that's not true entirely either. When we take a look at other countries, like for example Belgium, I imagine, and Belgium almost did it, they are essentially looking at a population that just isn't enough. I mean, they do have unemployed people here because the AI kind of sucks every now and again, but the entire idea in Belgium is that at a certain point in whatever you are doing, you will be wanting to use these workforce-saving production methods, even if technically they are bringing down your GDP by consuming certain goods like transportation and so on, because you need to save your workforce for other tasks. If you can then reuse that workforce in other buildings, you actually get a net gain in your GDP growth. But, well, for us, that's just not the case. We have 26 million peasants just lying around, doing absolutely nothing, being useless subsistence farmers. And we also have 1.69 million unemployed. So effectively, what we are doing is not just reduce our GDP by virtue of saying, hey, I am consuming some goods that could be end goods, as I could send them to other markets and so on. I'm consuming them now as intermediate goods, but we are also actually keeping some people from taking up work, and doing that is fundamentally bad, especially in the late game. You see, if I, for example, take a look at the subsistence farms right here in Pennsylvania, what I will be finding are 828,000 peasants. These peasants have a special status, and you should understand this if you want to understand why getting rid of subsistence farmers is so important for the game. Take a look at this right here. These peasants rely on subsistence output for survival and play only a limited role in the market economy. If we take a look at subsistence output, we will understand what this is. A form of in-kind income that peasants generate from subsistence farming, which represents work they perform producing goods to cover their own needs. Unlike wages, subsistence output is not paid out from the building's revenue and is not subject to income taxes. These people right here don't actually buy much of the goods they consume from the market. To put it into more, I guess, normal terms, the way it functions in-game is that these people work their fields and whatever they actually harvest, they consume directly. Which is why, yes, of course, they do earn a wage, yada yada yada, but they only purchase whatever they don't produce locally then on the market. In practice, what that means is that they effectively only put in 10% of the buy orders that any normal pop would put in. So when you see them consume goods right here, what you should basically take this as is that they only buy 10% of their need for fish on average from the market. The other 90% are done within the subsistence farm, which means they are not active purchasers, at least not to any meaningful degree. Any other normal pop doesn't actually produce anything for themselves like these two here, and 100% of their needs have to be covered by the market. Which means, you guessed it, these people are deeply, deeply unproductive. If you want to have more end goods, you want a strong purchasing economy towards the later decades of the game. This means we want to get these peasants off the fields, into the factories, earn a good wage, and then start buying goods. Because when they consume a good, it is counted directly for our GDP. So just to summarize it, we want to get rid of every single production method that is essentially saying, hey, I am just here to reduce workforce and I will be consuming a good. The reason for this is that these goods then are no longer capable of, for example, being exported, whatever you might want to do with them, that is either more efficient or most importantly brings up more output export goods elsewhere, meaning our GDP will naturally rise. Keep in mind, right now 286 million, still first GDP. Good stuff, but it can be so much better. The other reason for this is also that we want as many of our peasants and unemployed people to actually work, so that we have a stronger purchasing economy and can produce more consumer goods that will of course allow us more GDP growth as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and reduce this. Without any mercy, I will never exempt anybody. We're going to make sure that as many people are employed and employable as is humanly possible. Like I said, do keep in mind, if you are a very small country, make sure that you activate some of these. Whenever you notice that you are running out of population, this might very well happen to you. The two fixes are either you start conquering or you start using these optimization production methods. It's just that when we do still have a ton of population left over, don't bother using it. Now, I'm not even going to do anything else, and there are other things that I also want to do, but we are just going to take a quick gander at this. We were at 286 before I did everything that I just did, and now it starts steadily rising. I don't know why it sometimes pauses the game. Do you guys have this as well? Cool, we got an anthem. A bit late for an anthem, but, you know, be that as it may. All of a sudden, without changing a single other thing, I am looking at 305. I think we can go even higher without me changing anything else, but that is besides the point. I hope that you understand what is happening here and why it is good for us. And I think all of a sudden, I wanted to check whether we would go over 310, and we did. We are at 312, almost 30 million GDP gained for doing literally nothing. Now, the other thing that we need to think about, and that honestly goes much, much further than everything that I've just talked about. Yes, this production method stuff is important, and it does increase our GDP drastically just with one fell swoop here, but there is something that is much, much more impactful when we are talking about maximizing our GDP. We have the workforce. The actual issue here is that we don't have enough investment. And this is something that especially new players will shy away from. If you're playing a regular game, and especially, frankly, if you're playing multiplayer with your friends, make sure that not just do you only demand investment rights into other countries, but also that you sometimes hand out investment rights into yours. Now, the optimal play, once more, I just want to stress this, is of course something else. Literally just conquer the world, you'll be golden, but okay, come on, there's more to this game than just that, right? Let's understand very, very quickly what it means to have a foreign investment inside of your nation. We can do this by taking a look at Pennsylvania. You can see Duro y Compagnia, we can see William Cramp, although I'm not sure that this might be our company for all I know. I don't actually know who they are. I think they might actually be ours. This one right here is a French company. I would always recognize them. Dolphus Meat AC, they are indeed a very good French company. I personally like them quite a bit. They go deep into the textile mill trade right here, and textile is of course very, very strong. Let me tell you one thing. When another nation invests in your country, they will very often create these things right here, regional HQs. These regional HQs look like they give you massive benefits, but if you actually take a gander at them, well, yes, they pay okay, but the reality is that these companies will then use your investment pool to build more buildings for themselves inside of your market. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, the reality is, it's kind of both. This right here, and France, unlucky, you know, was nice knowing you, but this right here is Dolphus Mick AC with the actual company HQ. This is the worldwide HQ, okay? And if we examine the company profit right here, you can see that they make 30,000 from our regional HQ in Pennsylvania that floods directly into their coffers here in France. Which means these dividends do not stay in our economy. They go into the French economy. That sounds really awful, right? Because a core part of the gameplay loop here in Victoria 3 is of course to grow your investment pool. And what I'm suggesting apparently is to have dividends that could be going into my investment pool go into somebody else's. This exact line of thought is what keeps people from ever handing out investment rights into their countries or leveraging it significantly for a goal like this one. Which is why everybody just goes and says, well, I guess I'll have to conquer Canada, because that will mean that I will then own more GDP and the rest of the market will have less GDP. There are two factors right here. A, investment pool dividends flooding out of your country into other countries has zero impact on your immediate GDP. Yes, it makes it so that, in fact, your actual investment pool won't grow that much, but that doesn't really matter because we need much, much more than just our pool anyway if we want to grow enough to, well, hit the goal right there. GDP is related to the goods, to what we produce, not to the actual profits we are making. This is also, and I mean the calculations do differ, both in real life, but also Victoria 3 to real life. But this is even true, of course, in the GDP calculations of real life. We are talking about what is actually being produced, rather than just the profit itself. So this means that even if we don't get the dividends, this will drive up our GDP, which in turn will of course make it so that we get more minting, which means I can build more and I still derive a massive bonus out of it. Not to mention all of the people that will then be employed, earning a higher wage, getting of course much more invested in the consumer market, allowing me to build up my economy even more. That is one of the things that people are overlooking. The other element, and it is important that you always consider this, is that your capitalists do not inherently care about your nation. The people with the money only care for what prints them the most money going forward. This is why us having investment deals in other countries that, for example, have lower wages, that might be in a position where they say, hey, I can produce much more at a much cheaper rate. Maybe they have a domestic market, that I don't have in the USA, which means that if I produce dye plantations in Rajasthan, I ultimately will be making more profit. The reality is, where our investment pool is investing, when we have investment agreements with others, is very likely also not our GDP. They are investing elsewhere. Now, is this going to make us rich by virtue of our investment pool growing? Yeah, it is, but hey, we are well past that stage. It's 1909. I just want all of this right here, all of these buildings, to actually be built in the United States of America rather than in China. So, the conclusion here is pretty straightforward. A, we want our capitalists to not have many other options than investing in our economy as the most profitable ones so that we get their actual construction projects, added to our GDP. And two, we want to be the most attractive market, the most attractive country altogether in which foreign investors want to invest in. If we practice both of those elements, we will have a pretty clear route where money goes out of our economy and immediately comes back. Think about it. The regional HQ right here in the US that belongs to the French company sends money back to France. Then, if we have a deal with the French look at us, say, hey, I love the economic potential of the United States of America, I will be investing there. And we don't actually lose any money. If anything, we slow other nations down in how fast they can build up their economy, because all of a sudden, all of their investors are investing in ours, which means their building queue, much like ours is currently full with, Chinese projects right there, will all of a sudden be full with projects in the US. If you want to achieve this thing right here, and if you want to grow in general, always consider, even if somebody else takes the dividends away from me, can I possibly get them to just reinvest in my country? If you ever grow tired of it, well, just nationalize it, but until then, we can build up a perfect circle economy where the money goes in and out over and over again, becoming more every single time. So, let's examine what that actually means in practice. This power block right here is really nice. You can see it is massive. The player here really took care to get almost everybody except Mexico, I guess, into the coalition of America. This is great roleplay. This is basically what the United States of America wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve. All of these are okay. Don't really want to step on this. Maybe Vassalization 3 I would switch out. Foreign Investment 3 is decent if you want to play. It's not one of the stronger tenets, just for the record, but it doesn't really matter. That's fine. This allows you to nationalize fast, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to be nationalizing. What I will be doing is just actually exchanging this, because construction is that much better for what we want to do, right? We want to have it so that it is faster, and with that cheaper, and with that they can invest even more with less resources into our economy. Construction 3 is an insane boost for what we have planned here, so I'm just going to go ahead and slot it in right there. This will allow us and everybody else to be much more efficient at investing their money into our buildings, which, yeah, that is exactly the plan. Now, tech-wise, we don't really care about any of these, to be honest with you. What I do care about is this right here, macroeconomics. I would like another company. Thank you very much. Companies are incredibly powerful, of course. And beyond this, I don't think we need these desperately. I don't think, maybe arc welding, I suppose. You know what, let's do plastics and arc welding. These will let us shoot up our consumer goods production a ton, which obviously is excellent for, well, everything related to exporting our goods into other economies so that they can't really compete with us and hopefully their economy collapses. Now here comes the big thing, and I have to do this off screen, but I will essentially go through all of the treaties that we have. And by the way, I love that you're using treaties this much. That is so cute. This is what this feature is meant to be like, right? So, wonderful player. I love your playstyle. I'm going to cancel or at least reduce virtually every single treaty here that gives us investment rights into somebody else, and always try to get investment rights for somebody else into us. Like I said, we want the money to cycle back. And to cycle back, we need them to invest in us in the first place. This is going to cost us, of course, diplomatic power, but I don't think Amazonia can really invest anywhere else anyway, so we might as well. I like the way that this was used, by the way. It's very self-evident that the player was like, I can build them up and that's good. It's going to let me know, it's going to allow me to actually gain their favor. That is completely true, but now I need their economy to build up mine. That is what we're going for here. See, I really wish that I could actually go on and cancel this one. I don't want to cancel the treaty port because being able to access the Qing market, it's a great idea. Like, it's genuinely really good. Do you actually use it? Is he... Oh, the player isn't using it. So this is something I see a lot of people overlook this. You have to build up the trade center that is inside of your treaty port, or else you will not be able to access the market nearly as much as you order, because this is basically where they import and export what the Qing market could then access from our market. This isn't done by our trade centers over here. It is done by the trade center in the treaty port itself. So I gotta change that. Maybe I'm just gonna break this treaty, quite frankly. It's probably not worth it. The rest of the economy is so developed. You know what? I'm gonna break it. Screw it. Forget about it. Having that treaty port is great and all that stuff, but with how developed the rest of the world is, we can just export everything we produce to them anyway. Right, and so we are now going to see, yep, a ton of renegotiated treaties coming in. That is completely fine, don't worry about it. You will notice now in a second that I've turned around the investment rights, basically for the entire world. Where we are currently getting basically nothing, I will now go ahead, after I changed all of these treaties, to actually include... Oh, and they already did this. Look at this. You see now how long the binding period of that treaty is already. That's nice. There could be more even done with the interface right there, but that is already quite nice. I will now check in on every single power that I don't remember having investment rights with, and we are going to get them. This will also mean that I will actually revisit a couple of countries like France right here. Right now, I don't think I can get investment rights. Yep, they hate me. Once they actually like me, I will try to get that going. Basically, I will end all rivalries with people where I'm like, hey, you could be, and you probably should be, investing in me. Because, well, what's stopping ya? Oh, and I didn't even notice this. This is the cutest thing I've ever seen. Take a look at this. Alabama National Guard, Florida, Louisiana. They actually made a National Guard that doesn't have any standing units and exclusively are conscripts. This is the cutest United States of America that I have ever seen. We do have one here, the 4th American... Oh, what a lazy name. Okay, they forgot to name that one. These are like the originally, the automatically formed, I should say. Let's win this rebellion here. It doesn't really matter. What we are focused on is this right here. Look at this number. It used to be like 12 or something. These are foreign queues, right? Building in us. Now we are the most attractive market because of how many peasants we have. This number will not stop going up. I can guarantee you this. We're already hitting 40. I think we can probably make it to like 150 within maybe half a year or so, just because more and more people, the AI will basically look at us and go, hey, they have so much potential, they have such a big market, we should be investing in the USA. All of these buildings would not be built unless you get all of these investment pacts. I want to take a look at my government queue right here. What are we doing? We're doing farms, livestock ranches. I guess it gets them out of being peasants. This isn't my highest priority, but I'm not going to get rid of any of this either. I think I'm just going to leave it where it is. What I want to do is invest in incredibly high-value sectors, okay? One of the very classic high-value sectors, how do you identify it? Like, that makes you the most money, and with that money, you can then export it and so on, is, of course, by looking at our companies. We have good profit right here. Not a bad company. The bonus isn't that great, so maybe I would switch this out if it wasn't already so big. This one is good, yeah, Pennsylvania Metals is nice. We could have the construction company, it's great, but honestly not sure that it is strictly speaking necessary. I'll have to check the bonus actually. Nothing wrong with that at all, gives you a max number of companies as well. Army offense, see, this one is like the worst, I feel. The profit isn't that great, but I have to keep it because of the cold revolvers. How could I not keep it, right? Ford Motor Company is amazing. I love this one. We're going to go harder in this direction, I think. We are going to go for the automotive industries. That is what we're going to be doing, I think. This one, right, Panama Canal, makes perfect sense. Oh, I like this one as well, General Electric. Okay, I see what we're doing right here. We're going to go so much harder on the automotive industries. Pump up them numbers. The economy of scale is going to be insane in Michigan. Makes perfect sense as well. Where's that colony, by the way? American Congo, American Gabon? No, wait a minute. Where's the Ford Motor Company? I know it's here somewhere. I saw it. Oh my god, they sent you to Papua New Guinea? Okay, I don't know about that one. That's a funny one. Okay. And look at this. In such a short amount of time, we have almost gone up by 100 million GDP. Just because, well, I got rid of everything that uses, you know, resources. And additionally, of course, because we now have all of these people investing. We already hit 100 buildings queued in the foreign queue. You have to really consider this. I want you to look at this. Our achievement is to have the biggest GDP, and we need to have 25% in our country of the global GDP. Every single building that the British have queued for our market, for our economy, isn't going to be built in Britain, which means that the market in Britain will have less of a GDP share than we do, because we are using up their construction slots. So we are still building in our vessels right here in this Venice pack that I cannot change. It lasts for 24 years. We got Korea right there. It's unfortunate. So I couldn't cancel all the stuff that has to do with law changes, because you cannot renegotiate those treaties, and I don't just want to leave them, because then a ton of people will, of course, you know, actually get out of the treaties we have with them. I'm gonna eat it, that's fine. Our investment pool is no longer the main force of actually investing in our country. It is now the foreign queue. And the more they build, the more do they make dividends that we don't get, but then they just reinvest it immediately into our country, and so on and so forth. This is a perfect cycle of reinvestment with foreign countries. See, like I said, we could of course also go on and be like, oh, I'm gonna dismember France, bring down the economy there. We're not gonna do any of this. We can get this goal, at least I hope we can, just by virtue of me existing and indeed absorbing all of the investment from all the other big nations into my country. We have now hit 146 foreign queue. This is gorgeous. I am so curious about like the British queue. How much of their building queue right now is just building in us? Because look at this. They are popping off, let me tell you. Absolutely phenomenal. New Granada wants independence. I'm gonna say yes, and this may sound silly, but for the playthrough that we are doing, okay, consider what we're doing here. If they are in my market, which they are, they will have a much higher GDP than if I let them go and they collapse. If I let them go, that will also mean that my investors, not that there is much to invest in because they ran out of population, won't invest in them either. You know what? I'm gonna let you go. I don't care. GDP immediately got halved. Get cooked. Listen, not my problem. Oh, and I almost forgot one thing. Let's take a gander at this, right? What are our tariffs like? What you have to understand is that as much as we can, we should be exporting, because that means that we are not consuming that good. That means that we can access other markets' consumers, and they won't be able to actually compete with us because we are that much bigger. So that means subsidies on paper imports, I don't care. Sorry about that. Nope, don't care. Explosives, nope. Just leave it. Furniture, yeah, that is okay. We're gonna outcompete all of that anyway. Don't have the tariffs on here, that's okay. No. We want to export that so that they can't compete with us. Don't want to subsidize the rubber, that's fine. I think we're like fine here. I'm gonna take this away as well. Let's export all of that stuff. We want to export as much as we humanly can. Dude, just look at this graph. Isn't this sick? We are just taking the investment pool of every other major country that is friendly with us. And, well, it sure seems to be working out for us. I think the main problem that we are facing is because of how many peasants we have, and since they all can read, they all participate in politics, meaning we had a ton of yeoman farmers, which then in turn also means that we're getting very low government cohesion. None of these people want to leave this party because the yeoman farmers are that impactful. And there is macroeconomics, that is a great one. Who is going to Liberia? Listen, if Liberia wants to go independent, be my guest, okay? I don't care. What is the next company that I will be picking up? Let me just quickly see what goods are already covered. You don't really want to have companies that have too much, if any, overlay here, overlap. This one is good. I mean, the construction sector building throughput is great, but let me just be frank here, right? This modifier isn't that important because the biggest part of our queue comes from over here. I don't really think this is needed. I would much rather have something that can massively outcompete everybody else on the global market. Oh, Standard Oil. This is not a great modifier, just for the record. That's not amazing. But I'm going to go with Standard Oil, and I'm going to pump out 1 trillion oil rigs. They, of course, are also used anyway in our more advanced production methods. Let's found them, let's get the party going, and let's grow. Seeing what you can also do, and this is very useful, you should definitely at least know about it, I suppose. If you go onto your market screen, you can then go to the world market, and right here you actually see export and import. You can see that we are massively leaning into export. Indeed, this ratio right here is only going to get bigger as we start producing more and more. We will then, of course, also, via various scaling techniques, the bigger a building is, for example, you get economy of scale, you get company bonuses. We're going to outcompete everybody else, export massively on the world market, and they will become massive massive net importers. Look at this, for example. We get a throughput of plus 122%. It's amazing. I love the Ford Motor Company. Let me just hammer down the oil rigs right here, by the way. This will be hugely profitable, I promise, okay? It will actually be amazing once we have built all of that stuff and have it outsourced to the company. We will be rich. I mean, who could have thought, right? And then, of course, immediately after, let's go with some more automotives right here. Where do we make the most profit? You know what? We can build some in Texas. We got some oil there anyway. And, well, a ton of workers that are looking for work, so we might as well. I'm not sure whether we're going to be passing laissez-faire. I hope we will, but obviously, again, we're running down to the issue where we have a ton of radicals that come from low legitimacy primarily, and because of the yeoman farmers, because of the way we are, basically, as a society, until we get rid of all these peasants, yeah, we're going to be sitting at that for quite some time. The turmoil, I don't think we can really avoid it. Now, I will now, actually. I think we're going to exchange out vassalization 3. How much are we getting in terms of vassals handing us authority? 200. I mean, it's not awful, right? I feel like I would rather have it than not have it, right? Maybe I'm going to exchange this later once we pass, if we pass laissez-faire. We'll see. Yeah, this sucks. The yeoman farmers, man. You know what? You gotta eat it. Sometimes you just have 1 trillion radicals despite you being the wealthiest nation on earth. Really makes you think, doesn't it? Oh, wait a minute. Where are we supporting regime? I'm not supporting... No. Hey, whoa, wait. Where am I doing this? Oh, Cuba. Get out of here, Cuba. I don't like you. Yeah, you do you, man. If you want to go independent, okay? Doesn't matter to me. You're not adding to my GDP, and if I kick you out, well, that would be good for me, because your economy would shrink. So, let's take a look at this. Like I said, it's been 5 years about. We are up to 651 million GDP. You can see this quite drastically going on there. The foreign Q has been at over 200 consistently now. And this goal has been rising. It isn't going to stop rising because other people, of course, are also increasing their economy. It's just that we are growing faster than them, which means that we are slowly but surely catching up to this number. Only now 200 million away, you know, which is, since we are much, much bigger, not all that much. If we take a look at all the other GDPs, yeah, Germany's going up there. That's sad. I really wish... See, they are stagnating because I have this massive investment pact with them. I really am hoping that I can win over Canada as well. That would be amazing if they started investing in me. The faster, the more foreigners we get investing in us, the faster will we get to our goal. Now, since we have laissez-faire, I got some free charters, which means in turn now that I don't care about the authority per subject. Obviously, we're getting some money from them here. And let's take a look at diplomat. Honestly, it's not that much. We're going to change this, and I think... we could be going for external trade 3. This might be the best choice that we have. Or we go for food standardization 3. Efficient canning practices isn't awful. No, I'm going for external trade. For the time being, let's pick that up. That is a good choice there for sure. It just means that I can flood the world market with ever more product, which should give us a massive edge. We have now hit a plus 317 trade surplus. Yeah, we are exporting a lot and we're not importing that much because we are, of course, having everything produced in our country. Because, well, the world is investing in us. 264, Jesus Christ. Canada, how do you feel about this? Yes, let's go. Let me check again for the Canadians now, right? Are they investing in us? I assume that they have a lot of, like, unemployed peasant population as well. There they are. Thank you, buddy, for donating your money to the American economy. Percentage-wise, we are much, much closer. We are essentially catching up because we are growing much, much faster than the entire rest of the world. And just look at them. I mean, this is just incredible. They have invested in us the entire time. Their GDP is not doing so hot. I mean, nobody's GDP really is doing so hot except ours. If you compare whatever they are doing to this right here is where I took over. This is us changing production methods. This is investments flooding into our country. Every single time, technically they're making more money, that is true. But then they're just directly throwing it back at us, building much, much faster than I ever could unless I conquered the entire map. Oh, and we have a new party, it seems. We have the Socialist Party, which gets 48% of the vote. And then the Fascist Party is at 5... Okay. And we have reached 906 million. We're closing in on it. Obviously, it will push itself over 1 billion because of my rapid growth right here. But I think very, very quickly we're gonna get there. We've taken off. I mean, say what you will. But I am absorbing literally any growth that any of these people could have. And I'm enjoying that economy inside of my own country. Listen, I guess... we're going communist. I mean, why not? I might as well nationalize what they have been building in my country, right? If we get the chance, why not? Let's take a look at how this has developed, by the way. We now have far, far fewer peasants. Look at them right here. Way more laborers. And again, we want to reform this ideally, eventually, right? We want to reform this as well once we actually are hitting some caps right here. We're going to be working on the idea of actually using those optimization, those automation production methods. Until then, we're not going to be doing this. But for the time being, yeah, I mean, look at this building alone, right? This would be saving how much? 200,000 in workforce. Sounds really nice to me. We just gotta get there. All right, the election is in. Oh, wow. Wow, that is... Whoa, some actual legitimacy, man. That is great. This will, of course, also now work on the fact that many people here will gain loyalty to us, just thanks to the fact that we are at the righteous government level right there. Since I own barely anything of the country, let's take a gander at this. Look at this, Jesus Christ. We own like 50%, 36%, 22%, right? There's a lot of the country where we don't own that much. We have much weaker industrialists than we would normally have because... Well, think about it. They are not making that much money. How could they be making that much money? What I actually want to do now, this is very silly because it might stop my path here. It might make me less attractive for investment. I'm going to bring up our minimum wage. I want the trade unions to be more powerful and then maybe we become socialist? Let's see. For the time being, I definitely want the trade unions to like me at least a little bit more. We could go with any of these. I don't really want any of these. We could do ethnostate. No, thank you. Maybe migration control. Everybody loves it. Oh, wow, this is massive. I'm going to do migration controls. We don't need that many more migrants anyway. Let's do it. We're going to get now a massive boost here from the trade unions right there. This should definitely pump up our actual throughput, which in turn brings up our GDP just naturally. Yeah, look at that. That is magnificent. You love to see it. If I gotta do migration controls, I gotta do migration controls. It's okay. Just look at this curve. What do you want me to say? If we're talking about GDP maximization without just blobbing, this is how you do it. Oh, and there it is. Economic dominance completed. Wonderful. We've done it. It's over. We have won the game. We can close it now. Alright, I now brought in a communist here. Grant leadership, then I gotta change back to actually having a legitimate government. I hope that this means that we'll be leaving this party. Yes, it should. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. And maybe we're gonna do communism. Why not? And election results are in. We win. I'm gonna keep it this way. Keep the Democrats over there. Man, the petite bourgeoisie are powerful. I mean, don't get me wrong. They really are. You think I can cheese them to them? Let me check something here, okay? You think we could find like a magical guy that will help me in changing things around? Oh, if only I could invite him. Sadly, they're not accepted. Yeah, no, okay, we can't do it. I could have tried to, you know, kind of turn the petite bourgeoisie into communists as well. But you know what? Be that as it may, why don't we take a gander at command economy? What are we missing here? Oh, I need to change away from that first, huh? Oh, I see. Gotcha. Just look at this world market. I mean, my God, we have now reached 213,000 exports. I think it is only going to go up from here anyway. I think the global economy, like, is ours, basically. This is just, come on, this is ridiculous. And we don't own much of it because I'm still desperately trying to pass Council Republic. Oh my God, we finally did it. It took us so long, but we did it. Okay, we now have Council Republic. I think our color is about to change. We are called the United Syndicates. Who cares? That is not what this is about. I need to move towards command economy. What else do I need? I need to change this law right here. That's not going to be easy because everybody loves the law. Okay, I'll go for cooperative ownership. And now that that is passed, let's do something that I haven't actually done this patch. If I wanted to nationalize this without compensation. Okay, so I can't... Wait, so if I go down here... it shouldn't cost me anything, right? Obviously, the impact here, I mean, is massive. I don't care. Did I pay for this? No, I didn't. Did I? I don't think I did. Let's do it again. Let's do it again, absolutely. Except this time, obviously, I think I always have to, like... It acts as though I will be paying it, even when I'm not paying it. That's fine by me. I mean, not that big a deal, right? I'm going to nationalize all of this stuff. I'm going to let this run for a couple more years. We're going to see whether our pops buy our economy. And then maybe it just works. Right now, I mean, I can tell you one thing, okay? And that is, nobody likes me, okay? Everybody hates me because I took their property. Don't worry about it. That's okay. Not that big a deal, okay? You can see that we are now privatizing very steadily a whole bunch of buildings every week. Oh, and now we're really seeing it. So our economy had an issue because I bought stuff away from my companies. They are now slowly but surely buying that stuff back again. It's not like there is a competitor. I did close my market now. Our economy is recovering. Basically, I should have just, which is very fiddly, I should have just nationalized filtered buildings, like extremely filtering it. Always just manor houses. You do this, then you do this, then you close it, then you open it again, and so on and so forth. I didn't do this. It's whatever, okay? Now we are recovering, our economy is recovering, the standard of living, now the dividends actually being paid out to our workers is massively going up, further driving down, of course, our pop growth. That's fine, that's who cares, whatever, right? This is definitely, it's working. Would I ever do this outside of roleplay? Probably not, because if you are going to do this at this point, you're already filthy rich anyway, but you get the drift. It is actually working. They are now recovering here. We are at a point now, I think, where you hit the high level of SOL right here. We are a massive market, and like I already prophesized, we are now importing more. Our ratio here has become much more averaged out because we are so wealthy that we are importing more things. We can't produce them ourselves, and obviously we can get this done if we get it from the market, and our pops are so rich that they just benefit from it. Nothing wrong with this. GDP is still completely solid. We are back to corporate state. That is really funny. We could now create a new company, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I think we're going to call it here in the workers' paradise. We kicked out all of the foreign capitalists, and now it is just us in eternal harmony. Or something like that anyway. Folks, this was a fun save to explore, of course, how foreign investment and all that stuff can impact you. I'm going to leave you right here, and I will see you later, alligator.